Hey everybody, welcome to Base Live. Give everyone just a couple seconds to hop on. How are you doing today? Oh, Tracy, it's raining in New York. It's raining here in Indianapolis too.
Greenville too.
Is it raining in Texas, Destiny?
It's not raining here. I got blue skies outside.
Oh, rub it in.
The whole East Coast is jealous.
Okay,
As
see
is the
all
West
of y'all
Coast.
hopping. Yeah. All righty, welcome, guys. Okay, I'll do some quick introductions while everyone else joins. I'm Liz Prue, VP of Marketing at Base, and welcome to Base Live. These are our free weekly live events that we put on for our community. We host wonderful influencers in the space, like our lovely guest here today, Destiny. Hi, Destiny. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. And we are joined also by Mallory Greer. She's a CSM at Base. Hey, Mallory.
Hi.
For those of you that weren't at our Empower conference back in October and haven't met Destiny before, she is an executive assistant at Course Hero and Power Base user. She's passionate about corporate culture, cultivating a vibrant and robust atmosphere among teams, and strategic management. She has over 8 years of experience in events and hospitality industry, and this has provided her an opportunity to develop and focus these passions. Additionally, Destiny is also highly skilled in operations management and project management. So we're really excited to see for you all here today to see how she uses Base to help cultivate those. And Mallory is a customer success manager at Base. And after graduating from college, she spent 10 years at Blackbaud, a global leader in software and services for nonprofit organizations. And after having her first baby, she decided to move away from the corporate world. She spent 2 years as an EA at 33 Vincent, one of our partners here at Base. And now she helps run all the things when it comes to rocking out the Base product. So she'll be helping demo today. Really, really excited to have you both here.
Thank you.
Okay, so I thought what we could do to kick things off, and for those of y'all that have been at our most recent demos, we've dove a lot into Digest and Decision Stream, which I'm sure we'll briefly get into today. But I'm really excited about today's Base Live because we're going to talk about some of those other workflows within Base that we haven't in some recent live events. We're going to talk about our new inbox feature, how that seamlessly integrates with tasks, which Destiny uses. So I'm really excited for you guys to hear how she uses that. We're going to talk about Base Analyze, which is something that a lot of you have brought up in feedback too. So we're going to dig into that, as well as Dossier. So Dossier is a feature that I feel like whenever we do talk about it, like there are like these light bulbs that go off, and we haven't talked about it in the last couple Base Lives. So we're going to rock out with that too. But to get started, Destiny, would you mind sharing a little bit about your role and who you support so everyone can get an understanding of what your day-to-day looks like?
For sure. So I support 3 executives, our Chief Product Officer, our CTO, and our Chief Brand Officer, which gives me a lot of insight into what is going on in the company. So I don't have... Are you guys hearing an echo? I'm hearing an echo. Let me see if I can switch something really quick.
Yeah.
Let me see. Are you guys hearing an echo in the comments? I'm not hearing an echo on my end, but it might be. Let me see. Switch to my default microphone. Was that better?
Let me see. Yes, that is much better.
Is better?
Perfect.
Yeah. I spent $100 on this, and you know what? Let us know in the comments if you're still hearing an echo, but I turned off my really expensive fancy microphone.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful.
Okay. Sorry, guys.
Here. All good. I was hearing myself as I was talking, and it was really distracting. So like I was saying, I support our Chief Product Officer, Chief Brand Officer, and our CTO. So I have a broad view of the company, and it means I'm involved in a huge cross-functional team capacity. And it just... there's a lot happening. Needless to say, we have 3 lines of business, and our Chief Product Officer is always working cross-functionally with all those teams. So there's a ton for me to keep tabs on, and keep a lot of information stored, which is the main reason why I found Base. But that's who I am. That's what I do. We're a startup. We're technically still categorized as a startup. We're small, 250 ed tech company. So there's a lot happening for us. And most people probably picked up on our product if they've done any type of schooling or higher ed work.
Awesome. Thanks, Destiny.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and guys, make sure too, I didn't say this in the beginning, but if you have questions, that's what this is for. We'll answer some of them live. We'll save some for the end as well. But this is your opportunity to ask any and all questions about Base. So nothing is off limits. No question is a silly question. So make sure you take advantage of that. Mallory, I'm going to kick off to you to give an overview to those that are new to Base. We had a couple people say that this is their first time with the product. So did you want me to share your screen for that to kick things off?
No, I think I can just talk through that.
Awesome.
So for those of you who are new to Base, I answer this question a lot, as you can imagine. What is Base? And I think for me, I feel like most people want me to say it is a productivity tool. It is a scheduling tool. Like, they want me to try to put it into a category that currently exists. And I think the more and more we talk about Base, the more and more we dream about Base, I think it's true that it just doesn't fit into an existing category. Really, Base is a platform that was created specifically for assistants with the unique challenges and workflows that an assistant encounters in his or her day-to-day. And that just didn't exist before Base. So it's really hard for me to put it into a category. Base is really, I know most of you probably work with salespeople and marketing people, and they all have tools that were built specifically for them. Assistants are typically trying to put a square peg into a round hole, using systems and platforms that simply aren't made for them, and Base is really here to solve that problem. We also know that assistants often are obviously managing somebody else's time, somebody else's email. And so tools that typically work for somebody managing his or her own time don't necessarily work as well for an assistant. And so Base is really here to help you eliminate those tools that aren't built for you. And it's meant to make the assistant more effective, more efficient, more valuable to the people that he or she supports, and provide even more leverage to those individuals. So that's a long way to answer what is Base. But I also like to point this out when I answer this question generally, because the next question I get is, well, does my executive need Base? Like, I can't ask my executive to learn a new tool, to have another login. And so I like to point this out pretty early on when I'm talking about Base as well. It's just a tool for you. Your executive will see outputs from Base. And if you've attended any of our former or previous Base Lives, Liz mentioned that we talk a lot about Decision Stream and Digest Builder, and those are outputs that your executive will see. But it is meant just for you. So yeah, I like to address that out the gate, because your executive does not need to change anything. Base allows you to communicate with your executive in the way that he or she wants and at a time that makes the most sense.
Awesome. Thanks, Mallory. Oh, and I see some of our book club people are here too. Stephanie, hey, I'm so excited that you're going to start using Base. Stephanie's fantastic. If you guys aren't in our book club, check out the, they just changed it. What's it called now in our Facebook group? I think it's called Guides. Yeah, it went from units to guides. So check out the book club guides section. We're about to send out the invite for the next one. Okay, awesome. So we want to go ahead and dive in?
Yeah.
All righty. Okay, so first up, Mallory, let's kick off with the Base inbox plus tasks.
Yeah.
And I will go ahead and get your screen shared here.
Yeah. So just to give you guys, like we said earlier, for those of you who are new to Base, want to just give you a quick overview of what Inbox does and our task feature. Both of these are relatively new features. So you'll notice that they may or may not have a beta flag. So that really just means we're not done, but I want to share with you a little bit about what they do today. So as Liz mentioned, I was an assistant for a couple of years. And so I would typically start out my day by looking through my email, looking through my messaging tool to understand what's come in since the last time I looked. What are the things that I have to do? What are the questions that are being asked of me? Is there any information that I've gotten via email or Slack that I need to save for a rainy day or to refer back to at some point? And so Inbox allows you to push all of those things, those emails, those messages into a central location that you can then parse out based on what you need to do with that information. From Slack, it's as easy as putting your mouse over a message and clicking on the little bookmark icon. It pushes instantly straight into your base inbox. And from email, you can go into your settings and we give you a little alias. You can quick copy that alias and forward emails to your base inbox. I mentioned this on our summit last week and people hadn't thought of this, so I'll mention it here too. But I think in a lot of ways, base inbox can really help you set and establish and maintain boundaries with your executive. If you're comfortable giving that email alias to your executive, they can forward things into your inbox that need to be taken care of without, messaging you directly after hours or on the weekend. And so that's something that I like to mention too, that it just kind of helps maintain a healthy relationship. But just from a kind of overview, Inbox allows you to aggregate all those different items and then parse it out to the various workspaces or executives that you support. A lot of those messages probably become things that you have to do. I'm sure Destiny is going to give us a lot of examples of how she uses Inbox and how that's related to tasks. But just so you can see tasks, our task feature is very similar to a lot of other task managers, but better because it's integrated with other features in Base. So you're able to kind of see how all those pieces fit together in support of the executives that you're assisting.
Awesome. Thanks, Mallory. And Destiny, I'd love if you could share a little bit about how you use Inbox to task. Specifically, maybe we could start with what you were doing prior to that and then how this helped.
So prior to Base, we were all in the office, which meant people would come over to my desk and ask me for things. And I had sticky notes everywhere, which I think is the world most of us executive assistants live in, with sticky notes everywhere. And then when we transitioned to remote, everything was coming through Slack. And if you didn't select mark as unread or remind me, you would lose meeting requests. Something would fall through the cracks. Something would go missing. The way our company works is we do most of our work off of Slack anyway. I don't get as many emails, so my executives will request things via Slack. Their direct reports, their team members, all will send things through Slack. And so I often found myself going back and going, who messaged me? What did that say? I don't remember who asked for that. I know I'm missing something. And then I would spend time scrolling through Slack trying to figure out who that random person was that I had forgotten about. So then when Base rolled this feature out, it saved me so much time because I could stop doing this right click unread, which right there is a couple seconds every single time I have to process through that and do that. And just hitting the bookmark and knowing that I have it set aside, I can continue with what I'm doing. I've opened the message, I've read it, but now I know it's going somewhere and I don't have to think about it again in the moment. So it streamlined my thinking, avoided that context shifting, because if I had to read the message and process, then I was distracted again. And then I had to refocus on whatever I was working on. So it streamlined a lot of my processing in both my head and on my workspace. And I can say for sure that I'm definitely not dropping things like I was at the beginning of the pandemic. So I think that would be my main use case for it.
That's awesome.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mallory.
I was going to say, I can totally identify with that. I used the Remind Me feature a lot when I was an assistant, and it's not ideal because your day is never predictable. So you may think you're going to have time to deal with this thing in an hour, and inevitably something comes up and you're not ready in an hour and you're having to snooze it again. And I used to wake up in like a cold sweat in the middle of the night, like, oh my gosh, somebody asked me to do something and I didn't do it. So I'm so glad to hear that it gives you kind of that peace of mind too.
Mm-hmm. Destiny, have you used it yet with email or just Slack, since that's where y'all primarily?
I have used it with email. It's not my go-to feature just because most of the requests I get are on Slack. But when I do have larger projects or I need to remind myself to build out projects on the task feature, then I can forward over via email. It's just not my go-to. It's not my daily use case. It's more of my weekly use case. Slack is definitely my daily use case.
Awesome. Mallory, you want to try and just show what it looks like to go through from Slack to inbox?
Yeah, absolutely. I am sharing my screen now. Hold on, let me open up Slack. And okay, perfect. And so let's see here. So let's say you come in and you are greeted by all your little, well, in my case, orange bubbles, because I like fun Slack themes. But something that's super easy to do is you just click on this little bookmark. You cannot hear it probably, but I heard a little ding. I got this notification within Base to let me know something has been pushed over to my inbox. Here I see this Slack message. And then from here, like I mentioned earlier, you can parse out to the various workspaces and the different features. So with the exception of inbox, all your other features down the left-hand side of the navigation bar are going to be specific to the workspace that you're in. If you're not, or I'm sorry, the only thing, inbox is the only one that's not specific to the workspace that you're in. So from inbox, you're going to take that item and actually move it to the appropriate workspace and then tell Base, you know, is this something you need to do? Is it a new contact of your executive and you want to save that information to Dossier, which we're going to get to in a couple of minutes. Maybe it becomes a custom entry in Dossier or even a question that you need to ask your executive. So inbox is going to be that kind of feature or a workspace agnostic piece, and then you're going to parse out from there to the various workspaces.
Awesome, thanks. I'm going to pause there for just a second and see if anyone has any questions. And I know we're at about a 7-second delay on Facebook, so I'll give you guys just a second. But I do see some questions coming in, so I'll throw them up to you, Mallory. Is Slack a required platform to use Base?
It is not. And this is related to another question that I saw come through too about Microsoft Teams. So Slack is not required. It's one of the tools that Base integrates with. So at the current moment, we integrate with Gmail. We integrate with Outlook, Exchange, as well as Outlook 365. We also integrate with Microsoft's free account, live.com. We integrate with Slack, and we're working on a Microsoft Teams integration as well. The Slack one was just had less red tape, less steps to go through. So we're in the approval process for the Teams integration. And as soon as we are approved as a Microsoft vendor, we will definitely let you guys know, because I know we have a lot of Teams users, and you'll be able to do something very similar with Microsoft Teams.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, I didn't see any other questions come through on that piece. So if we want to move to analyze and walk through that, and again, this is something that we don't talk about a lot on our Base Lives, but we keep receiving feedback about how much people actually use this. So Mallory's gonna give a quick overview, and then Destiny, I'd love to hear how you use it and find it valuable too.
Mm-hmm.
Let me, I'll come back to getting some data on here. So I'll share a little bit about what Analyze is, and then we can show some examples as Destiny's talking through how she uses it. But Analyze is really meant to help you as the assistant understand how your executive is spending his or her time, and help you proactively make some changes in that time. So I know one thing that a lot of assistants do is align what their actions are with their executive's goals. And so something that I often did as an assistant was I was very in tune with what my executive's goals were. And if somebody requested his time and it wasn't directly related to one of his goals, I often would push that meeting out. So I don't want my executive spending a lot of time and energy on things that aren't going to ultimately push his goals forward. Certainly there are some exceptions to that rule. But Analyze helps me in a really concrete way understand how much of my time, how much of my executive's time is spent in meetings, how much of it is internal versus external meetings, which for a sales leader may be very important. A sales leader is likely spending the bulk of their time with external contacts. If they're spending it with internal contacts, they're not selling stuff. But that may be very different from, say, an HR leader who is a people manager and the bulk of their time probably is being spent with internal people. So from a high level base is going to give you some metrics as to how that time is being spent. It's going to break down that time on various different pieces. And then we also show you a heat map. And like I said, as Destiny's talking through this, I'll get some data up here. But we pull out like top event terms and top people so that you can see on a more granular level how that time is being spent.
Awesome. Thanks. Destiny, I'll kick it off to you.
Yeah. So Analyze, I think, was the feature that drew me to Base originally when I first went hunting to figure out how to look through my execs and determine exactly where they were spending their time. And what was the biggest win for us was when I first ran the Analyze tool on our CPO's calendar and showed him how much time he was spending with individual people within his org and other orgs. And what he was shocked by was he was in a lot of meetings with our CTO and he didn't realize it. And his immediate thought was, wait, if I'm spending this much time with him, I should have a more robust relationship. I should feel like I'm spending a lot of time with him. And so we took that information and started reworking his calendar. And my CPO used to have literally 0 hours of free time. And so every time there was a new meeting, it was a complete disaster trying to reshuffle, readjust. That was one of the main things when I was brought on. They said, they were like, if you can get him more free time, that would be the best thing. So after we introduced Base and we worked through that process of going, hey, you actually spend 6 to 7 hours a week in the same room as the CTO, but don't actually feel like you're getting anything out of that relationship. What do we do differently? And that made him feel a lot more comfortable with stepping away from meetings because he knew that the CTO was in a lot of them, and then he could focus more of his time on one-on-ones with the CTO or being in other meetings that our CTO wasn't in. So it just enlightened a lot of what was going on the calendar for him so that I actually had him supporting the changes I wanted to make on his calendar instead of me saying, hey, we need to make these changes so you have free time, and him not knowing why he didn't want meetings removed from his calendar, but he was resistant to it initially. So I think it just brought things to the surface and put light on things that he wasn't even aware of that made him much more comfortable saying, oh yeah, we don't need those meetings, or, oh, I can skip that meeting, or I don't need to be in that meeting. So now he's got 4 to 6 hours of unbooked time on his calendar. And that shift happened in just about 6 months. So going from 0 time to about 6 hours a week of unbooked hours at the beginning of the week is a huge, huge shift. And I can honestly say it probably linked back to him just being able to see those numbers and see those numbers easily. I think that was the other thing is when I was hunting for a tool, everything was jumping through hoops for me on the admin side, which is I don't have time to jump through hoops to try to pull calendar data. I just want to click a button and have it done and be able to show him quarterly, monthly, weekly, quick and simple. It doesn't have to be super detailed. It was just saying, hey, you spend 6 hours a week with so-and-so. We need to change that. And that made a huge, huge impact. Something so small can, do a huge long-term change to how your executive works.
It's amazing how just the data makes, it's just like, okay, there's no question. All right, this is what we're doing now.
Yes, and our teams are very data-driven. So giving them that little piece of data made them immediately go, oh yeah, I'll make the change, no questions asked.
Well, and I think in the Zoom world that we're living in too, like I think pre-COVID, so many conversations were had over a water cooler or in the hallway as you walk to meetings. And now that we're not having those interactions, I feel like a lot more executives are getting meetings put on their calendar. And so it's super helpful for them to be able to understand, like they can feel that their free time is shrinking, but to really understand, who am I spending time with? I had very similar example to what you were sharing, Destiny. Somebody told me recently that using Analyze, she was able to see that her executive was spending, it was something like 5 hours with the same handful of executives throughout the week on different topics. And so they were able to consolidate what was like 5 meetings into like 2 meetings and significantly decrease the total amount of time spent just by streamlining those meetings, because typically they were filling the 30 minutes, even if they didn't need the full 30 minutes, with different things. So being able to say, here's a meeting, we're going to talk through X, Y, and Z in this amount of time, they were able to streamline the overall time. So that's another example that I've seen people use Analyze for.
I saw a couple questions come through. So I'm gonna pull some of those up quickly. From YouTube, Lisa would like to know, our IT department is not keen to allow me and my exec's calendar or inboxes access to Base, waiting on approval at the moment. So is that, if you're referring to security or something like that, we can definitely get you the information that you need there. But you also don't need calendar access to start leveraging Base. And I'll let Mallory elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So having your calendars connected to Base is certainly going to amplify your overall experience of Base, but you don't necessarily have to have the calendar connected. Destiny, remind me, when y'all first started using Base, did y'all have calendars connected, or were y'all using it for a period of time without calendars?
We used it for a period of time without the calendars because we were also waiting on our IT department to give us the go-ahead to use the platform. They had said, well, you can use the free version or whatever. Yep. Just don't connect it to anything until we run through the process. So it took about a month and a half for us to finally get the green light to connect everything. But we were able to learn how to use these features by integrating it with, so I integrated it with my personal calendar initially just to see how it would work. Because that's fine. IT can't tell me not to integrate my personal calendar. Not my company calendar, my personal one. We highlight that. But I definitely went through and used other features, even though I couldn't connect Slack or calendars initially.
Yeah. So you definitely, like I said, it's beneficial from a digest builder standpoint, from an Analyze standpoint, to have those calendars connected. But like Destiny said, you can still leverage the product. You can still leverage digest builder even without the calendar connected. That said, as we work with more and more companies, we're finding that most folks are needing to go through some sort of security or IT approval process. And we're totally equipped to handle that. So if you are ever in that scenario, reach out to security@basehq.com, and we're happy to answer any questions that your IT staff has. We have a white paper. We're working on a SOC 2 compliance. We're working on single sign-on for those of you who are who use a single sign-on provider to access your business tools. So Lisa, totally common, but just reach out to us to let us know how we can support you through that process.
It looks like there's another question from Tracy on YouTube. Is there a workaround to remove me from the top analytics?
So it looks like Tracy's talking specifically about the top people. So this is one of the things that I see people using a lot. So with top events and top terms, it's looking at the date range that you specify and kind of bubbling up certain terms and people to the surface. On this particular screen, it shows you just like the top, 5? But you can always click into this See All, and a lot of people miss this button. The See All actually shows you all of the top terms or all of the top people. It's going to give you the time spent in hours, and you can actually download this list to CSV for further manipulation. So to answer your original question, there's not a way to remove you from this visual piece today. We are working on a schedule. Oh, I won't tell you. Actually, I'm going to close my mouth there because we're going to show you some exciting stuff. But we're working on a feature that's really going to A, blow your mind, and B, make Analyze even more powerful. But if you did want to remove yourself, you can always click See All, download that list to CSV, and then you have the ability to manipulate the data in any way that you want outside of BASE.
Awesome, thanks. And yes, at the end of this, we have I dropped a teaser yesterday. So if you didn't see the video I posted in the Facebook group yesterday, or the one we posted to Facebook and YouTube last week, you're going to be real excited at the end of this here today. Oh, Tracy already knows she's on the wait list. I love it. Okay, so let's dive into dossier. And if you guys come up with questions about previous things we've talked about, keep dropping them in the chat. But Mallory, could you just give a quick overview of what dossier is? And then I'd love to hear from Destiny on how she leverages that, because I think that was actually what inspired us to have you come today, talk about dossier. So I'm super pumped.
Yeah, so I'm going to keep my spiel very brief because I think Destiny has a lot of really great insight into how this feature can be used to support your executive. And it was like we've said a couple times, it was the original feature that attracted her to BASE. So from a very high level, assistants know a lot of information about their executives. A lot of it lives inside their brain or on Post-it notes or in notebooks or in a million other places. And dossier is kind of that single source of truth. It's that holding tank, if you will, for all things that you need to know to support your executive. So from here, Destiny, I'm going to turn it over to you to share with us a little bit about how you actually use dossier and what attracted you to begin with.
Yes, so dossier was the feature that got me the budget approval to purchase BASE for our entire team, because I had found Analyze and I thought it was great, but that apparently wasn't enough to sell our chief of staff on the platform. So I went back again and I was working on a project where I was trying to consolidate all the information we had on all of our leaders and actually have somewhat of a handbook, because we were growing our EA team and there was a lot of information that I, as the first official hire as an executive assistant for Course Hero, was gathering on our entire C-suite plus the VPs that were underneath them. And so I called out the fact that we don't have a single source of truth on this information. And if I were to have some terrible accident tomorrow and not show up to work, what on earth would you guys all do? And I think that really made everybody stop and go, oh, you're right. You know, a lot of information and it's not kept anywhere that is easy to shift from person to person if something like an emergency were to have happened. And so I found the dossier feature and went through it and started playing with it. So we've got a lot of information stored there. We still keep, obviously, the personal identifying information on 1Password. So we do keep that information separate. But food preferences, personality profiles, communication preferences, communication styles, who they get along with, who they don't get along with, all of those smaller pieces are being stored on our different leaders in the dossier, because when we had shifts in our team or somebody needs to go on emergency medical leave, which actually happened in January, there were pieces that were missing that I realized oh, if I just had all of that information there, we've been working on this for about 6 months, so it's going to take a little while to get all of our dossiers built out because we have all of our C-suite executives, which there are 6 of them, plus I think there's like 7 or 8 VPs. So my current base platform looks kind of ridiculous because I've got about double the number of little bubbles up there because I have everybody on my end since we've got an EA on leave. But even just knowing what drink did they order last time we ordered cocktail couriers, like I don't remember what do they like. I can store that information there. Or does this person even drink? Knowing that and knowing those small little details make me so much more customer focused in my role and allow me to respond and answer quickly to needs, requests from anybody around the company. Or if they say, hey, I want to send so-and-so a gift, I've got addresses, I've got everything in an orderly fashion. And then if I decide to go on vacation, I can just sign it over to whoever is holding down the fort while I'm gone. And we have a very transparent team, so that it wouldn't be awkward to share that. We have some pretty stellar executives, so there's not going to be information that I would be ashamed of sharing with any of my teammates on there. But I know that's not necessarily the case for everybody, so maybe something to consider. But yeah, I think it was having a space to log all that information and knowing that it would be easily transferred to somebody in case of an issue, or so I can take a vacation and not stress about things, is really key, because as assistants, we don't take ourselves and our time for us seriously. And so we still feel the need to check our phones and check our Slacks and take text messages and emails while on vacation, even though you have a I'm on vacation email set. And that's a lie 90% of the time, but I wanted it to be true for our team. And so I think building this out has saved us a lot of time. It's also saved us a lot of stress and wondering, oh, where is that information? We have it stored somewhere. So there are probably many little small use cases that I've figured out how to use and how to use better as we've used Base. But that's kind of our little high level pitch on why we ended up using Dossier and why it's been helpful for us.
That's awesome. Because a lot of times too, I would imagine that the information that you can store in Dossier, it feels like maybe sometimes it shouldn't just be sitting in a Google Doc or an Evernote. And even if it is, it's still foldered like it's like organized chaos still, right? Like, because if you're handing it off to someone, they still have to, they don't know what's in the doc, they're just control finding or like trying to figure it out. So it's nice that it's all organized the way it is.
Yeah, and I'll also add that through working with Destiny and having her kind of dig into what's stored here, what isn't, she's given us some really awesome feedback about other things that we could add, like the personality profile. Like, how helpful would that be if that was front and center and you knew that, Destiny, you've talked a lot about, if you're going on vacation or if somebody has a long-term leave, how helpful Dossier can be in that transition situation. But we also know that assistants are superheroes and sometimes they move on to bigger and better. And so this has also been a selling point for the executives, that it makes the transition to a new assistant that much easier. It makes bringing somebody on board that much easier. But for a new EA executive pairing, Dossier can also act as like an agenda for a getting to know you call, because it kind of brings to the surface some things that you might not ask on those first couple days on the job. So we've also heard those scenarios for Dossier as well.
Yes, we actually did something similar because we hired an EA back in November. And so that was another part of her onboarding, was passing Base off to her. Here are your profiles. They're not complete, but we've started them for you. And here's the information we have secured. Obviously, fill it out more. And so it's been super helpful. And then having, the custom feature, which you're showing currently, has helped keep track of things like, what gifts did we send to people last year for Christmas? What gifts are we thinking about sending for this year's, holidays? Or so-and-so was sick, or so-and-so's dog had this happen on this date, just an FYI, and just having a place for all that information. Because yes, I can store it in my brain, but my brain only has so much space. And if it's filled up with that kind of information, then I can't actually be focused on the strategic work that I'm doing as well. So it's part of that context shifting in my brain, which I alluded to earlier when we were talking about the inbox feature. But here again, taking that information and feeling like I don't need to remember it because it's stored somewhere. And then that gives me more freedom to store pertinent information for what I'm currently working on, like Q2 planning. So, and then I don't even have to think about all these other pieces. I can just go back and check later and be like, oh yeah, so-and-so, they were mentioned today. I should see what we did for them last year, or I know their birthday's coming up, or it's their work anniversary, or who is this person? How are they connected to my leader in the contact section? And all those small little pieces that take up so much of my mental energy now don't.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that too. We try to make it really easy for you to get those small contextual pieces into Dossier. So we mentioned this early on when we were talking about inbox, but if you don't know about Dossier, when you're hearing that, you may have missed it. But you can, so like, let's say you get an email from somebody that's new to your executive, or, you know, you get some helpful information via email. You can take inbox items and move them to a contact in Dossier. You can add that email as a custom note in Dossier. So again, it gives you that single click to get it into their Dossier where it's safe and it's that single source of truth. We also recognize that answers to decision stream may become information that you want to remember in the future. So like maybe, you know, Destiny's example of what kind of cocktail do they like? Maybe that was a decision stream question you asked them once upon a time. All of our decision stream questions give you this little quick copy button. So you could quick copy it. You can come over to Dossier and put it in as a custom entry, for example. So we try to, we're building out more and more integrations between our features. So I do foresee a time where we could push a decision stream answer to Dossier, but right now we give you that quick copy button, and then you can push it over to Dossier from there.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Before we jump to our special spicy new feature video, Destiny, you talked about, I'm going to go rogue a little bit off our outline. You talked a little bit about how Dossier was the feature that was able to push your internal teams over the edge in order to get base. And so I just wanted to quickly ask if there, because we get this question a ton in the community where I'm not sure how to advocate. I'm not sure what is going to matter most to my internal teams in order to get tech like this approved. So was there a specific process that you went through? Or was it more of just like, guys, I need this. Tell me what data you need in order to get it approved, and I'll get it approved?
It's a good question. I think as assistants, we're very quick to always look to what other people need, and we'll jury rig, we'll be gritty about stuff to make it happen. But I think stopping for 5 seconds and going, wait, how much time is this costing me to jury rig or to be gritty about? And why am I spending my time doing that? And realizing that your time has a value stamp on it, as well as your execs. And knowing that if you're wasting time on trying to sort information, you're actually costing the company money. Like maybe not as much money as your executive spending an hour doing something he shouldn't be doing, but you're still costing your company money if you're wasting an hour trying to organize something random in a space that's not useful. And so I'm really passionate about giving EAs the permission to stop for 5 seconds and go, wait, this is not efficient for me. How do I make it more efficient? And so one of the projects I was working on was a handbook for our exec ops team, which is our little small EA team of 3. And stopping and going, wait, we have all this information. We have access to all this stuff. And we're the small behind the scenes team making the executive team effective and efficient. We also have to be effective and efficient if we're going to do our jobs correctly and if we're going to make them as efficient as possible. So our little approval process consisted of me pulling the features that I felt like would be beneficial to us as a team and really advocating for the fact that we needed this, because we did get pushback and saying, well, how is this helping the executives? I was like, you don't understand. It's going to help the executives because it helps us. And stopping and just saying that, one, is kind of freeing, because you're like, oh yeah, I actually can advocate for something for me. And quite frankly, it's not that expensive to get base. It's not an expensive tool compared to all the other tools that I know our company is purchasing on a regular basis. And so I just outlined, hey, these are the features that I think are going to be really beneficial to us. We don't even use Decision Stream. I have a lot of FaceTime with my execs. They text me all the time. I don't necessarily need that type of communication structure with them. And so it wasn't something that hit my selling point to our chief of staff saying, hey, we need this product, because it was a small thing like dossier, analyze, and the inbox feature that I was able to use and sell to her and say, hey, we're going to save X amount of hours as a team by just implementing this tool, which means we're going to be more effective and be able to be in more meetings, take more notes, strategize, whatever we wanted to fill in there. And once I had that typed out, she was like, oh yeah, this makes complete sense. Here you go. I was like, score. That was easier than I thought it was going to be. And it was literally one page. It was just one page highlighting. These are the features. This is how much time I assume it will save. And these are some of the pain points that it'll solve for us. And one of them for me was Slack and feeling like I was dropping the ball on things without really wanting to, but it's a legitimate challenge tracking all the Slack messages from all the different team members. And yes, I'm going to drop the ball because I'm human. It's part of my life. Yep. But if I can avoid, that, if I can have a piece that steps in and goes, yes, you're human, but I can mitigate for me being human with this simple tool. And she was quick to jump on board with that.
I love, you said something that I've heard other assistants say. And well, I love that first you said I gave myself permission to, advocate for myself. And I think that's definitely something that is hard for some assistants because so much of your time is spent advocating for someone else. So I love that you said that, but I've also heard an assistant say something very similar to what you said, where, an assistant gives leverage to an executive and base allows them to amplify that leverage. So exactly what you're saying, it allows you to, and certainly we're not trying to put more work on your plate, but if you're able to stop doing, work smarter, not harder, stop doing the stuff that's not producing results and spend that time instead on something that is helping align your goals with your executives and helping with strategy and making sure that your company is meeting those overall OKRs and things like that. So I love the approach that you took, Destiny.
And start small too. I love how you said that too, where it was like, we just started with dossier. That was an easy, hey, look how much it's going to save time. And I know I've preached the 30-day challenge to you guys before watching today, but that's a really easy way to get started with Digest and Decision Stream and just to get introduced to the tool. And it's free to use those features at their core level. So I'll include that in the follow-up email. So you guys all have links to that as well. But speaking of saving time, our new feature, and Mallory, I may toss to you to introduce Scheduler, and then I'll share also the video. But can you tell everyone a little bit about Scheduler and what that's going to be?
Yeah, so once upon a time, I was an assistant who supported somebody in Arizona. And for all of you EAs that are supporting somebody in Arizona, God bless you, because it gave me massive anxiety. I never knew when daylight savings time was happening. And then if I had to schedule with them and somebody else, it gave me brain hurt. And Destiny, you're right. We're human. So sometimes when it comes to talking about different time zones and somebody says they're available at this time and you're trying to put it in a different time zone, it just gets complicated. It's very error prone. And something else that I often experienced was somebody would say, hey, Mallory, I need to meet with your executive next week. And I'd say, okay, Tom, here are 4 times that would work for my executive. And then Tom would wait 4 days. And then he'd say, hey, Mallory, I'd love to do Thursday at 2. And I'm like, that's great, Tom, but you waited 4 days. So Thursday at 2, no longer available. So let's start this whole process again. So we know that scheduling is just it's a nightmare when you're managing somebody else's time, when you're trying to schedule across multiple time zones with different people, with busy people. It's hard, it's error prone, it's tedious. And so Scheduler is the new tool that we are currently working on. And it's going to solve a lot of those challenges for you. It's going to allow for dynamic options. So kind of like think the best things about Calendly or Mixmax or some of those, but marrying that with the thoughtfulness of an assistant. And we're really just kind of scratching the surface of what we're going to do with this tool, but it's really just meant to make your lives easier when it comes to scheduling, removing some of those roadblocks, and letting you spend time on things that matter and not sucking so much time into scheduling.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thanks. Okay. I'm going to show our really awesome video that one of our teammates put together, Mary. You guys have seen her pop in the comments before, just to give you an overview. And this video is also posted in our group. I'm going to pin it back to the top of the Facebook feed after this Space Live. And then if you're on YouTube, if you check under product videos playlist, you'll see it there as well. All righty, here's a quick preview. How cute was that? Come on, guys. I see some heart emojis, all the things. Oh, I love it. I'm dropping the link to get on the wait list too. I know a lot of y'all said you were on the wait list already, but go ahead and click that link and join the wait list to get updates and first access when that is ready. But if there aren't any other questions, guys, I just want to say thank you so much to Destiny for joining us today. It's just it's just so great to get one of our users out here to share the different ways that you're using Base. I think that's for me, that's one of the most exciting things, is that there are so many unique ways that our users can use our features and how they need to with their organization. Like, there's not one set way to use really any feature, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun. So I really enjoyed being able to share how to use this tool more effectively.
Awesome. And thanks, Mallory, as always. Really, really appreciate it.
I always enjoy talking to Destiny, so I'm always going to say yes for that one.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you both, so thanks.
Sorry, I was muted. Okay, well, guys, you guys have all been super awesome. Thank you so much for watching today. I will get all of these resources that we talked about, 30-day challenge, scheduler wait list, and a couple other fun things over to y'all via email. And as always, these videos are available under the announcements tab in our Facebook group or under our Base Live playlist on the YouTube channel whenever you want to watch them. Thanks again, and we'll see you guys at the next Base Live.